Good afternoon. How are we all? Thought I might just do something on staging. So currently have had meetings for the last few days in Tasmania looking at doing some changes around policy, and it's a very exciting time for us because those changes are going to mean a lot of difference to accommodation all the way through the country, because they start in one place just here in Tasmania means that we now have a pin-up policy that we can take around the country to say that the Tasmanians did it, and the outcome's been a positive one all the way around. So staging, should you be staging a property? So staging a property is where you take very nice furniture, very nice additions to the house, put some extra paintings, you might do a little bit of painting to get it right, and then put it to the market for sale. And staging has been shown over many years to increase the price of your property by 10 to 15% when you're selling it. It also reduces the amount of discounting. And so when I say that, when people put a property on the market, they always put it on at a price higher than what they're really willing to accept. And when that acceptance happens, it's a lowering in the price. So that's called discounting, where it might be listed for 400 but they accept 360. So there's been a discount in that of 10% because they've taken 40 grand less than the 400. So that's one thing with staging. It will discount less. It will generally, in an auction scenario, sell for more. And you don't really know that because you don't have anything to compare it against. You also have the ability to, but you'll be paying for that, obviously. So staging can happen in two different ways. You can stage a property yourself, which will mean going out and buying furniture and buying paintings and buying knickknacks and buying the fruit bowl and all the things that you would expect to increase the price of it, to make the property look nice. Or you just go out and hire it for a period of time. So when you're hiring furniture for staging, or hiring a staging person or stylist to come in and do your property, you usually pay for 6 weeks in advance, which is a normal cycle of selling when you're trying to sell a property. And then if you haven't sold that property yet and you maintain it and pay, you end up paying weekly. When you pay weekly, it ends up being a lot more in cost. So you're better off to do it in a number of different ways. The first way is to do the 6 weeks, and if it ends up in a position where you haven't sold it yet, then you can tell them to come and pick it up. And a little trick of the trade is when they do come to pick it up, they give you a date. You simply say to them, sorry, I'm actually not going to be there on that date. We're going away on holidays, and can you come after that? And they're usually pretty good, and they come a couple of weeks later. So you can try and get a couple of extra weeks out of it. Doesn't always work, but it's a little trick of the trade that we actually only stumbled across simply because we were on holidays when they were coming to pick it up, and we ended up in a better position. So that's one way. The other way is that you go out and buy the stuff yourself, and then by the time you've finished your campaign and sold it, so it can be as long as you want, and if you sell it, then you end up losing money, obviously, because you're selling something secondhand, but it could end up cheaper than just doing a staging and styling. I think generally when we're talking about staging and styling, that you got to be careful if you're going to do it yourself, that you might think that you're great at styling, but at the same token you may not be, so be very careful with that. your tastes are not necessarily what the general market taste was, and these people that style and stage for a living have an eye for detail, have an eye for colour, and will put things together usually far better if your ego can get out of the way, usually far better than what you can do. So I would be, very cautious about doing it yourself. We had staging furniture for a number of years that we just had in storage, and we'd update and change it as we went along. Nowadays we simply just keep everything and don't worry about selling it. The other question someone had was around, and remember, placement of more is less when it comes to staging, because you want to be careful that you don't overcrowd things like bench spaces on kitchens. You want to be very sparse and just have one thing that people look at and concentrate on. And you also want to make sure that you clear all the personal items out. So no photos of yourself or your family, because you're trying to get someone to imagine living in your property. So clear those out. Anything that's hanging on the fridge, get rid of. Any dusty corners, make sure that happens. Anything that's hanging, any windows that got any dirt on it, make sure you clean all of those up. And you might think that this is just a normal standard thing that I'm telling you, and why wouldn't you do it? But there's plenty of people that go down that track and actually don't do these little things that make a big difference. Because even if you might just see a little speck of whatever on glass, the buyer that comes through may not notice that, but they will have and understand that there's a component of dirtiness that their unconscious mind picks up, not their conscious mind, their unconscious mind. I think ultimately regional. People ask the question all the time in regional. In regional, you probably don't have to stage as hard as what you would in metropolitan, but I would consider doing something, and that might be trying to buy some secondhand furniture, even if it's just getting a bed without the mattress on it, and putting some cardboard boxes down to give it its base. I know it sounds stupid, but a bed in a room, a house empty will look very sparse and won't actually attract anyone. Putting some furniture in that is half decent. I don't mean go down to Vinnie's and buy the cheapest beds that you can get, but get something that's half decent, and that again you can on-sell down the track. You might lose a little bit of money on the unselling, but you will probably most likely gain more money in the back end of actually sell price. So understand all of that. Ultimately, should you stage? Most of the time, yes. I would suggest yes, that you should do it. If you're selling a property that has no bones to it, and you're expecting someone to trash the place and renovate it to bring it back from trash to treasure, then you probably won't bother. But otherwise, in most cases, you'll have an increase in price, you'll have a decrease in arguments from or conditioning from buyers, and you'll have a lower amount of discounting. But you do need to understand that you have to be good at it. So anyway, that's my view for the day. Cheers.